Hi guys, this is Linda Margaret, and I am here to read you Chapter 2, titled The Hospital. Sam! The girl's panic shouts echoed in Samantha's ear, a jarring counterpoint to the quiet despair that had settled within her. With her right hand underneath her armpit, she awkwardly waved her left arm, desperately trying to flag down a taxi. The cool night air bit at her exposed skin, carrying the faint scent of exhaust fumes and the distant wail of sirens. The flashing lights of the oncoming cars seemed to blur, each one a sharp reminder of the night's events. Caleb's eyes staring straight at her, Amy looking pestered, and Rob's infidelity crawling into her mind again. I'm not going back in there. She turned to face them, her voice tight with the pain that went far beyond the throbbing in her hand. It was a pain that had taken root 7 months ago, a gnawing ache that refused to heal. I can't believe you all talked me into going out. Her eyes, already red and swollen, welled with fresh tears. We didn't know this was going to happen, Sammy. Victoria spoke softly, her hand reaching out to touch Samantha's arm. But Samantha flinched away, the gesture, however well-meaning, feeling like another intrusion. Sam, Sáryah's voice was gentle, laced with concern. I already said I'm not going back in there. The restaurant, the noise, him, it was all too much like the life she was trying to escape, the life that had betrayed her. I was going to suggest you come to the hospital with me, Sáryah said, quietly, her eyes filled with genuine worry as she examined Samantha's hand, now swollen and bruised. She knew that Samantha needed more than ice and sympathy. She needed a doctor, a proper diagnosis. Fine, Samantha replied, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. It was easier to give in, to let Sáryah take charge, than to argue, to explain the suffocating fear that was rising in her chest. A single tear escaped, tracing a slow path down her cheek. The taxi ride was a blur. The rhythmic swish of the windshield wipers against the rain-streaked glass created a hypnotic rhythm, a stark contrast to the chaotic thoughts swirling in her mind. Samantha stared out the window, the city lights blurring into streaks of color, mirroring the chaos in her mind. She cradled her injured hand against her chest, the physical pain a small, sharp counterpoint to the deeper ache within. Sáryah brought Samantha into the emergency room, the air hard with the cloying sweetness of antiseptic, a smell that clung to the sterile surfaces and the anxious faces around them. The harsh fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting long, distorted shadows across the waiting area. It was a smell that Samantha knew all too well, a smell that instantly transported her back to the sterile corridors of City General. She remembered the rhythmic beeping of Rob's heart monitor, a sound that had once filled her with a fragile hope, a sound that had ultimately flatlined, leaving her alone in the sterile silence. She saw his hand, so thin and fragile, lying in hers, the skin cool and clammy. She could almost feel the phantom pull of it now. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a harsh glow on the cold linoleum floor. The sounds of hushed conversations, the occasional muffled sob, and the insistent beeping of machines filled the air. A symphony of suffering. Samantha felt a wave of nausea rise in her throat, the taste of antiseptic sharp on her tongue. She closed her eyes, trying to block it all out, but the memories were relentless, flooding her mind with images of Rob's pale face, his labored breathing, the way his eyes had looked at her, a mixture of fear and apology. All eyes shifted toward them, one of which was a clean-cut, slim, tall fellow. Her doc. Hey, Dr. Baza, you're back. A man wearing a long white coat and a stethoscope around his neck shouted from across the hall, making Sáryah turn. Samantha quickly swallowed her tears, trying to compose herself. No, I'm just here to help my friend, she shouted back, forcing a smile. Oh, is everything all right? The doctor asked, deeply concerned as he scurried toward the ladies. His eyes, warm and friendly, rested on Samantha. There was something in his gaze, though, a hint of something that made Samantha uneasy. It wasn't just that he was a doctor, it was the way he looked at her, a familiar blend of pity and something else she couldn't quite place. The clawing sweetness of antiseptic pricked her nostrils, a scent that sent a wave of nausea rolling through her. Rob's room, the pale green walls, his labored breathing. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block out the memories that threatened to drown her. Well, we're on our way to radiology. I'm sure she broke her hand. The doctor took Samantha's hand to evaluate it. Yep, looks broken to me, he said, looking up into Samantha's eyes and smiling at her. The smile, though kind, made Samantha uneasy. It was the same gentle curve of his lips, the way his eyes crinkled slightly at the corners that Rob used to give her, a smile that promised comfort but ultimately delivered pain. It was a smile that had once felt like sunlight. Now it felt like a cold, biting wind. She looked down at his name tag, Bob Stevens, MD. Samantha instinctively pulled her hand back, a flicker of distrust in her eyes. Well, let me know if there's anything I can do to help, he told Sáryah, then glanced at Samantha and smiled before walking away. Sáryah raised and lowered her eyebrows at Samantha. Samantha rolled her eyes and shook her head lightly. What? I'm just don't. You saw what just happened with that Caleb guy, and now you want to throw a doctor at me too? Samantha chuckled weakly, the sound hollow and strained. Sáryah couldn't help but laugh, though her eyes were filled with concern. Geez, girl, you do have bad luck with men, Sáryah told Samantha. Tell me about it. They continued to walk to the radiology department, the antiseptic smell growing stronger, the memories of Rob growing more vivid. After the x-rays were taken and read, they confirmed Sáryah's suspicions. 3 of Samantha's knuckles and fingers had hairline fractures. These injuries would require several weeks to heal. After 2 hours in the cold, sterile emergency room, Samantha was released with a cast on her hand, a prescription for painkillers and vitamin D, and a doctor's excuse from work for a week. It would take a month for Samantha's hand to heal completely. Following that, she would need to wear a hand brace for 2 weeks. As she left the hospital, the automatic doors hissed open, releasing a gust of cold air that sent a shiver down her spine. The cast, a heavy, unfamiliar weight on her arm, felt like a physical manifestation of her grief. A cold dread settled in her stomach, a fear that she would never escape the shadow of Rob's betrayal, that every touch, every smile would forever be tainted by the memory of his lies. She thought of Rob, of the way he used to hold her hand, of the way his touch had once felt like home. Now, even the weight of the cast felt like a betrayal. That is the end of chapter 2. Again, it's titled The Hospital, and it is from the book To Love Myself. I will be reading chapter 3 next week. Thank you so much for being here. I greatly appreciate you.